Back to Brian's Beat.
Yeah. Pretty simple, huh? Welcome back. Hour 2 of Brian's Beat. I'm Brian. Glad to be with you. I don't know if you remember that, but that goes all the way back to 1947. Heckle and Jekyll. All right, hour number 2. Where do we want to start? Oh, had a caller during hour number 1 who had mentioned, the quote of the day is from Warren G. Harding, former president. And the caller had mentioned that Harding was a part of the Teapot Dome scandal, certainly was a part of his administration. Was actually Albert Fall, who was a part of the bribery scheme that was going on, but it was, again, during the Harding administration. So why don't we let that lead us to the Brian's Beat quote of the day, brought to us by Monthly Fee RX. If you're spending less than $20 a month for prescription drugs, great. If not, then our Monthly Fee RX service might be a good option for you. Check for yourself at monthlyfeerx.com. And today's quote, America's present need is not heroics, but healing. Not nostrums, but normalcy. Not revolution, but restoration. Warren G. Harding. I'm not quite sure if he was president when he made that statement or not. His time in office was pretty short, 21 to 23. But that saying, I decided to use it today because I think it's fitting, because right now, this nation doesn't need heroics. It could use healing. We don't need medicine men, nostrums, but normalcy. Try to figure out exactly what that is. I don't know about you, but I don't want a revolution, but I want restoration of how this country is supposed to be run. That's my thought. Yours? 508-996-0500. Let's go back to you. Hello.
Hello. Good morning, Mr. Wingin' and Wangin'.
Good morning to you. Yeah, I'm winging and I'm wanging, and I'm loving it.
That's always. I beat you to the punchline, though.
That's cool.
So you lived in San Francisco. How long did you live there?
About a year.
No kidding. I went there. I stayed there, well, only a couple of months. I was on my way to Hawaii. I was going, there to spend a few years to live there. And I said, you know what? Let me just hang out and see what San Francisco's about.
What did you think?
And, I thought, whoa. I mean, and we're going back when I was, in my early 20s, okay? There was so much homelessness, but so many restaurants. That gentleman caller, he calls in a lot. And I never knew he was calling from San Francisco, so I'm going to call him Mr. San Fran. Yes, I am. And I appreciate his calls because he's got a lot to say. He's highly intelligent. He kind of manages his way into certain conversations that aren't relevant, but very relevant. You know what I mean? And
see, you used a different word, but yeah.
Yeah. But so that was pretty interesting to find out you lived there. I actually really enjoyed myself there. I was just overwhelmed because I've never seen homelessness. I've never seen it.
Really?
You know, where I go. No, I've never seen it. Never in my life. I mean, well, up to that point.
Or at least not at that size.
Yeah, no,
So
no,
you,
not.
what you said you were in your 20s. Give me a better idea of
22.
what year are we talking about, or decade?
I was born in 1962.
All right, so you were there in the 80s.
I was very naive, I suppose. Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing.
So the reason why I lived in San Francisco from 83 to 84.
I'm a stars. I was there a year before you.
Mm-hmm. So?
Well, no, not true, because I was there at 22.
Yeah, so you were there 84.
84.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we overlapped a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it, though. I thought it was, I mean, I guess maybe because, like you said, so many restaurants and the vibe is so good. Everybody's like walking. Nobody, I mean, there was a lot of traffic, but not a lot of traffic. You know, it's like you saw a lot more people walking around. But when I ventured off, walking here and there, because I was traveling by myself, so I didn't have anybody to tell me where to go and where not to go. And then that's when I saw homelessness and disparities, drug use, and I'd never been exposed to that. I know of drug use and stuff like that, but I never saw that side of the drug world, heroin, needles, and stuff like that. And I was sad. I was sad because I didn't know how to behave. Do you keep walking? Do you say hi to these people? Like, I wasn't sure what to do, and you know, it's kind of embarrassing. I felt for myself, and a hi goes a long way. And so, anyways, I'm digressing, but it was great, and I had no desire to ever go back, but it was great. It was great. Experience.
Yeah, I love going back when I get the opportunity. Anytime, I don't necessarily fly a plane that's going to land in San Francisco, but if the opportunity comes up, I love to go into the city. I always like to go by places where I used to live to see what are they down to the building and that kind of stuff.
Can't you go to Google Maps and do an overview?
Not this. Yeah, yes, I could. But it's not the same. I want to see the building. If I can get inside, I want to see what it looks like inside. That's who I am.
So why did you fall so much in love with this particular building for the time that you lived?
Not just the building. I mean,
the nostalgia.
I was born in Chicago. I know how I left there at age 5, but I still know how to get to where I used to live. And anytime that I go back to Chicago, I like to see the house that I was raised in Chicago. You know, it's not just San Francisco. I like to knock on the door of the apartment complex in Waltham that I used to live in. You know, that's just what I do.
No, I get that. Because I still like to go by my house. And sometimes I just literally want to pull up in the driveway and knock on the door and say, "Can I just walk around the backyard?"
Go ahead and do it. Worst thing that's going to happen is somebody's going to shoot you.
They're going to say no. Yeah. Or shoot me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So another thing, that guy about the rib tides, he is so smart. He's a wealth of information. I swear. I enjoy his phone calls too. So there was an actual rib tide in a pond. Now, how do you figure this?
I don't.
You know, and the poor child, he died.
Ooh.
And in a pond, though, you wouldn't expect a rib cart in a pond. So I was thinking like Quincy Quarry. You know, they like to go diving off of that, and they do there's rip currents in the quarry. So I'm wondering if this pond doesn't have some, because when you take your kid there, I mean, I grew up swimming in ponds and little man-made beaches. Never in my wildest dreams would I think I could have, died that way, but they're there too. And I was wondering, how would you even know, if that caller knows, if you could call back in, that would be cool. How would you know that it's there in a particular, environment like that?
I wouldn't. And as I like to say, I'm learning something new every show that I do. I would never guess that you could get a riptide in a pond.
Yep.
But here you are telling me, and I'm going to take you at face value. I hope you're not lying to me.
Absolutely not. I have no reason to lie about somebody dying that way. No. It's very tragic.
But you know what it could be? It could be somebody said it was a riptide, but it wasn't a riptide.
No,
I don't think that you are intentionally trying to put one over on me.
The water rescue fire department said that, yes, that it's known for that now. And I was thinking about it, but it wasn't, and now it is. I'm like, I don't know. I think it probably has to do with the sand and maybe the sinking. You know what? I don't know. But maybe that caller's listening. He can call back. But yeah. So, anyways, I wanted to say welcome back to your day, your Saturday show.
Thank you. Feels good to be back in the driver's seat again. In my driver's seat.
For me all the time. I thought that woman was so mean last week and stupid.
What woman? What woman?
The woman that called in and said, "You and Tim don't make the cut."
You know what?
I thought how immature, but you were.
You know what? I went home and I was shedding so many tears.
Well, you were funny that day because when you came back on, you were pretending that you had cried. But I mean,
it took a lot out of me.
Bad.
It really did.
It felt bad for me.
It did. Please don't feel bad for me. You know what?
Well, you know what, Brian?
You know what? I made the cut for the cake, and that's all that matters.
No, you know what? You can't be everybody's butter on their toast. That's what I say. We can't all be the butter on everybody's toast.
You know what? You're correct. You cannot be.
That's the quote of the day from me.
You know what? I love folks like that. Because I'm not even gonna go down that road, but I love folks like that. She's no problem.
We need everybody to put a little grease on our old joints, right?
Oh, doesn't that sound great?
Well, listen,
yes.
I enjoy you, and I'm just gonna get off the phone.
Well, get off the phone, and I'll see you in San Francisco.
Isn't that a song? I'll see you in my dreams in San Francisco.
See you in San Francisco. No, I don't think it goes quite like that. I think that's see you in September.
Okay, look, we're both digressing.
All right. Have a great one.
Bye.
Thank you much for the call. 508-996-0500 is how you can get onto Brian's Beat today. Hello.
I just had to call you, Brian, because I did exactly the same thing that you did. I love doing things like that. My father bought a house back in 1966 in Trumbull, Connecticut. And I love that house. We only lived there for a year because my parents had split up, and we moved back to my grandmother's house in Mattapoisett. But that house was the greatest house. I loved it more. Well, when I was first married, I said to Bob, I said, can we just take a road trip to Connecticut and spend a few days there or so? And he said, sure, why not? He loved to drive anyway. We used to always go up to Canada and all. But anyway, so we ended up in Trumbull, Connecticut. And I knocked on the door of the house. I mean, I was brazen, but I wanted to see what it looked like. It looked exactly like I remembered it from the outside. The color was the same. Everything was about the same. And they opened up the door, and the couple there were called the Hennessy's. And it dawned on me, my father had sold the house to them. And so they invited us in, and we had tea and I don't know, some kind of dessert. And they showed me all around the house, and it was so fantastic to see what it looked like after all those years. One of my favorite points of that house was down in the finished basement, the cellar. We lived in a ranch house. My father had a pool table, and I loved playing pool on that table. I was only about 7 or 8 years old at the time, but I always was very much about sports and competitiveness. And to my brother, I can whatever you do, I could do better. And I always did excel in all I did. So we'd play pool down there, many, many times. And it just was a great wooded area. We lived in a cul-de-sac, and we used to go on trails, and there were waterfalls. It was such a fun place. And so they were gracious. They were really nice. I was surprised because, here I am. They don't even know me at all. And I just mosey on over to their door, ring the bell, and they just let us in, and it was really a fantastic time.
It's surprising how people respond. Not everybody's going to let you in, but if you can somehow show them that, hey, I used to live here. I'm just kind of curious. A lot of times they're going to say yes.
Right. I mentioned my dad's name, and because I knew, I said his name, they knew, they had bought the house. Luckily, they still had the house. They actually had the washer and dryer still was working.
Oh, wow.
And it was a turquoise I remember it was turquoise because in the 60s they had these really odd-looking colors. And I couldn't get over it that from 1966 on to 1983 that dryer and washing machine was still in good use. It was amazing. There was one more thing I wanted to mention to you, too. You were talking about rip tides and all, rip currents. Well, I did that twice. I was kind of stupid. I did it on my own. I was with people, but I'm adventurous, and I'm a really good swimmer, and I love the water. And I went to Lloyd State Park in the 90s, and I went way out. I mean, you saw people walking around out there. You could go way out, and you'd still be up to your waist. You know, the water wouldn't go much higher than that. Well, coming back was a different story. It took all my strength trying to get back to the shore. I just dropped on the ground, and I'm very good with, you know, water and everything. But that current, it was like pulling me out. And that happened there, and it happened in Mattapoisett when I was going to this island. We call it Gull Island. It's really Ram Island. In low tide, you can follow the sandbar, and you can go out there. And we used to do that in the 60s with my parents and their kids and all, my friends' kids and all. And so I decided to do that one day, and my boyfriend stayed on the shore, which was probably better that he did, but trying to get back in, it was really hard. I mean, I made it and all, but it was
exhausting.
Rough. It was exhausting, yeah. I took all, and you had to go sideways as you're coming back. You couldn't just come straight, like as if you're walking straight, because that current was just pulling you out. It was really, really dangerous. I said, well, I'll never do that again.
Did you say that was at Demarest?
Yes, that one.
And there were no lifeguards?
I don't know where they were at the time because it was in the summer, and there was a father and his kid, and they were walking in the water like we were all over the place, and nobody seemed to care what other people were doing. And like I said, it was like probably August when we had done this. Well, I had done this. My daughter went in the water, and my boyfriend too at the time, but they stayed more on the shore. I'm the daredevil. I'm the one that's always loved water, always done things I shouldn't do, and my mother told me not to dive off of a pier one time down in Mattapoisett. There was these beautiful mansions down there, and they had a clam bake at one of them. And my mother said to me when I was 12 years old, "Don't you dive off of that cement pier," because she was afraid I was going to hit the rocks at the bottom. Well, of course, you know, you don't tell a 12-year-old child not to do that. They're going to do it. And I did it. And she says to me when I came back, like an hour later, she says, "I saw you diving off that pier." She says, "But your dive was so beautiful." She said, "I couldn't believe how beautiful you executed that
And you didn't
dive."
hit your head.
And I did hit my head. That was a bonus.
Wow. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Have a great
I
one.
love listening to you. You too. Have
All right,
a great
thanks.
day.
You too. 508-996-0500. Wow. You know, listening to these go back into the house stories. That house that I grew up in Chicago, great house. Well, you know, it's the first one that I remember. And about 30 years later, I'm in Chicago on a business trip. And the next door neighbors to when I lived in Chicago, they were still there. They still owned their home. And I actually stayed with them. I'm telling you, these are people that I hadn't seen in 30 years, but my mom and their mother, you know, they were, you know, on the phone. So I said, well, what the heck, I'll stay over there. And I'm looking at the old house, and on the exterior, it looked the same. I walked into the neighbor's house where I was staying, you know, to check out the backyard of my old house. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go up to the door and knock on that door. And I asked the people that I was staying with, do the Stones still live there? And I was told, well, the father died, but, you know, the daughter is taken over. And I said, well, I don't remember any daughter. I do remember the father, but we'll see what happens. So, you know me. My name is Brian, and I know you don't know me, but in 1962, your folks bought this house from my mom. And the lady's looking at me like I had 3 eyeballs. I said, I'm just kind of curious what you've done to the house. I never got off that front porch. But she was saying, oh, well, we've lived here for quite some time. I'm not here to try to buy back. I just want to see my old house. No, wasn't letting me in. Oh, well, 508-996-0500. I can tell you this. Every other house that I've approached where I used to live, and I've asked if I could see what the house looks like, whether I owned it or my mom owned it, they were all willing to let me take a look. The house, many people know that I grew up in Framingham. That house, I ended up selling that house 2003, 2004, somewhere. I don't remember the exact year. And I told the woman, the couple actually that bought the house, if you think about selling this house, please give me the first right of refusal. So, woman friend had an appointment in Framingham. I don't know, let's say it was 2020 or 2019. And I went around my old street and I was visiting the people across the street from me, still lived there. And they were telling me that the folks that bought the house from me, they weren't there anymore. And I said, I told her to call me if she was ever going to sell it. And he goes, they probably had more in their mind because the husband just dropped dead one day and they were looking to sell it as quickly as possible. I could live with that. No pun intended. But I just love seeing what folks have done. The one time that I did get into that house after, they'd blown out one of the walls to make the kitchen part of the family room or the family room part of the kitchen. It looked great. I'm thinking to myself, wow, I wonder why my mom didn't think about this at such and such a time. But, it's amazing what people can do to homes with a little ingenuity. 508-996-0500. Let's get back to Brian's beat. Earlier in the show, I mentioned, one of the reasons I don't watch the Olympics anymore, they have some silly events. One of them is, it's breakdancing. They call it breaking, but it's breakdancing. I suppose breakdancing is okay as a dance routine and stuff like that. I don't want to knock breakdancing, but as an Olympic sport where you're giving out medals, are we serious? So, Not Bad in Oak Bluffs goes through the app chat to text me, why are skateboarding and surfing Olympic sports? I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer. Just like I don't know why Jason Tatum hasn't played in a couple of the Team USA men's basketball games. But skateboarding, surfing, do you think those are worthy Olympic sports? Breakdancing? To me, that's what the Olympics have devolved to. And I don't need it, quite frankly. So as you know, and I can hardly wait to see where this is going to take us. There has been talk for a good month now about the Healy administration's policy about migrant families in these emergency shelters. They were restricted to 5-day stay starting at the beginning of this month. And has to be 5 business days. Can't include the weekends. So first business day was last Friday, August 2nd. So by Friday, August 9th, folks needed to be out. Well, I did not know this about the shelter law, but the folks operating the shelters have the flexibility to extend the stay. They can grant extensions. And I couldn't think anything but, wow, what a great loophole for the Healy administration. They can come out and say, well, look, we wanted to close this down, but the shelter operators, they've got the final say, and they wanted to keep it going. By the way, those shelter operators, they're getting paid money courtesy of whom? I mean, the state basically is covering that nut, but where does the state get its money from? They're not printing it. They're getting it from you. They're getting it from me. Part of our tax dollars that we're funding. By the way, and speaking of funding, if some of these folks that are homeless, and the category is flexible here, they could be homeless and are from the Commonwealth. They could be homeless and they came in from out of state, or they could be homeless. They came in from outside the country. Doesn't matter. If, for whatever reason, these people that are now going to be out of the shelter system decide that they want to go somewhere else, Governor Healy has decided, well, we'll pay for the transportation to ship them somewhere else. Now, got to be honest, it would be less expensive to do that than to keep them in shelters around here. But isn't it great to know how your tax dollars are being spent? Now, I knew about we're in the shipping business. I did not know that we were letting shelter operators have the final say over this new policy. Got this from the Boston Globe. Many migrant families given reprieve from shelter evictions, at least for now. Friday marked the start of a new state policy that limits stays at the overflow sites to 5 business days. But shelter operators have the flexibility to grant extensions. Did you know that? I didn't. It's not like I'm the genius of all geniuses, but I did not know that. And to me, this is going to come down to one major thing. And it's going to have to be a major thing that we, the people, are going to have to initiate, because Bacon Hill lawmakers are not going to do this. They've had plenty of time to work on this right to shelter policy, to change it, modify it, get rid of it. They haven't done a damn thing toward it. And so I believe it is going to be up to the yous and me's to put a ballot question on for what will be 2026. Ballot question, and you can modify what this right to shelter is by deciding, well, who qualifies, or you can say, let's just get rid of it. Now, here's the problem. According to a survey done a couple of months ago, a poll, Mass residents say that immigration is a top concern, but they're split over migrants in shelters. And it's one of those too close to call. So you might put this out as a ballot question and the stakeholders that want to keep the migrants in Dodge, you know what they're going to do? They're going to raise up a lot of money, and they're going to fight tooth and nail on TV. 508-996-0500. I do appreciate your patience. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, you were talking about the Olympics earlier.
I was.
Yeah, there's. I got to admit, I don't watch a lot of it. I'm selective in what I watch, and there's some events that are kind of interesting to me,
Like
the table tennis. Watching those people play that game, I don't know how they're doing what they're doing because I've played table tennis myself, and it is so hard to hit that ball with English on it and keep it on the table and hit it hard, and they just go at it with it's kind of unbelievable to watch.
I've seen at Boston Garden. I saw champions playing there many years ago, and your eyeballs can't keep up. It's like boom, 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 boom.
No, and that ball. I mean, I remember my friend that lived on the same street as me when I was in high school. He had a table tennis set in his basement, and we used to go and play. But it was very difficult to keep that ball on the table if you hit it hard, which is what you're trying to do, is hit it hard so you can get the point. And it's not easy. And I'm watching those people, I'm saying, how the heck are they doing that?
Since you brought it up, who's winning?
It's not on right now. I was watching it last night. But today, there's another event I wouldn't mind watching. The U.S. women playing for the gold in soccer. And I find that kind of interesting, mainly because they weren't supposed to get this far. They were like, I don't know, the fourth-ranked team in the tournament, and so they are going for the gold today. And watching the volleyball also there, both men and women, it's incredible. It's kind of incredible. I mean, they're so good at it, you know. It's a skill.
You know, I like the two-person volleyball more than the 8 people to a team volleyball, because I mean, that's a real skill. Two people.
You're talking about the beach volleyball. Yeah. That's interesting. I watched some of that, but there's a whole lot of the Olympics to me is unwatchable. I as a spectator sport, certain things like track and field, I don't mind watching the pole vault because it's a skill. It's not easy to do, but I'd rather watch a horse race than a bunch of people running around a track.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. The horses are more graceful, you know?
Look, horses are, but I have to admit, that to me is the epitome of a Summer Olympic game.
Yes, it is.
Watching people run, watching the javelin, as you were alluding to, shot put. I mean, that is sport. Yeah,
that goes back to ancient Greece. That's the part of the Olympics that goes back to ancient Greece. I mean, they had mainly it was field events. It was track and field. I mean, and sometimes the weightlifting can be kind of. Now they've got women lifting weights at the Olympics, and some of those women that go out there, believe me, you wouldn't want to run across them in a dark alley.
No. I think there are many women athletes that I don't want to run across in a dark alley. Yeah, I would say some of the USA women's basketball team. And
yeah. No, I mean, I don't know.
Not that I think they're going to do anything to me, but look, I think women today can handle themselves a lot better than the women of the 1950s, 60s, and 70s.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in high school now, there are so many women athletic sports that didn't even exist when I was in high school.
Oh, I think they take self-defense, never mind the sports, self-defense. They know karate. They could be doing the chop suey all over you. Forget that.
Yeah, no, it's a different world. No doubt. Okay.
It's a woman's world.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Bye. I do appreciate the call, 508-996-0500 to get on board the program today. It is amazing, though. Break dancing, an Olympic sport. I mean, what's next? Are they going to have ballet dancing? I mean, you have to be in great shape. I get it. I mean, when I see ballet dancing, when I see the gymnast, out there on doing the floor exercise. But break dancing, and I guess we can call it a sport. It certainly is a sport. It's when they're doing the swords. Yeah. Why can't I think of what it's called? On guard, that one. Skateboarding? I don't think so. I mean, is it a sport? It's good when you have it in the X Games and, some of those kind of things. Surfing. Not only that, they did. France has the Olympics, but surfing was done out in Tahiti, thousands of miles away. Now, I understand it's a property of France and stuff like that, but, the Olympics were in Paris. They were in France proper. Not way to hell out in the Pacific Ocean somewhere. 508-996-0500. Hello.
Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Brian.
Okay. Could you please explain to me nomadism and how did you become a nomad?
Well, I first became a nomad when I lived in a van, and I was traveling all through California after I lived I don't know if you were listening earlier, but I had an apartment up in San Francisco, and then I left that and I traveled around the state of California living in a van. That would be the one part. I lived in a motorhome for, well, let's say it like this, from 2013 to 2019.
Yes, I remember your chronicles in the motorhome. That was always interesting.
Yeah. To a lot of people it was.
Yes. And I saw you on the road a few times too.
Yes.
So.
All legal though.
Oh, yes. I would imagine so. Nothing but legal for you.
Well, I won't say nothing but.
What made you decide to choose this area to stay? Because you don't seem to be a nomad any longer.
So, in 1999, my mom got to a point where she couldn't live on her own anymore. And my then wife and we had a small house, and we decided we could upgrade. We moved our family to Dartmouth. It was halfway between where she worked in Rhode Island and halfway between where I was working on the Cape at that time.
Oh, okay. And then I believe you had mentioned that you were a landlord. You started to buy some properties on the Cape?
No, bought properties around here.
Oh, okay.
And I also had one that I was operating up in Framingham.
Oh, all right.
But I got out of tenants and toilets.
Yes, you did. I remember you speaking about that also. So you no longer consider yourself a nomad?
Oh, I consider myself a nomad. I just don't do it as much.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Once it's in you, at least for myself, once it's in my blood, it's in my blood.
Now, did any of your children catch the bug?
I have one that travels a lot, but he has a home base. The other son travels a lot for business. The ex-wife, she travels a lot just to travel. She works for the state, so she gets plenty of time off.
Oh, be careful. I retired from the state last year. I thought that was a good job.
Well, you know what? I don't like it, but she liked it. It was her job. It is her job. She still does it. But I think that the state gives a lot of holidays. And I don't know about her. She is a good, diligent worker herself, or at least as I remember her. But there are lots of people that work for the state, whether you're talking about working for the registry or any of the other divisions within the state, that get this lazy mode into them. And sometimes their higher-ups tell them, don't work so hard.
Oh, but you can't paint everyone with that brush.
Oh,
Brian.
I can.
That's not fair.
Because it's my
Not
tax
fair.
dollar.
I knew quite a few of fellow state employees that worked very, very hard. Very, very hard.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
And I did it for 40 years, and I traveled all over the state.
And
I've
you
been in
worked
every
very
single
hard.
hamlet, 351 cities and towns, and I've been in every one at least once. So it was quite a bit of work involved there too. So
Thank you for bringing that up. That's a good topic for down the road. How many cities and towns have you been in here in the Commonwealth?
Well, I'm glad I sparked that interest in you.
All right, man. I appreciate
All right,
the call.
have a good one.
You
Bye.
too. 508-996-0500. Not going to really get to do much on on this whole immigration issue. Maybe Pittman, when he comes in, he can follow up on it. I don't know what Ken has planned. I haven't seen Ken since he was playing Rockstar up at UMass Dartmouth a couple of Saturdays ago. By the way, were you at that show? I got to tell you, that group, Living on a Bad Name, they are fantabulous. They can play. They can rock. There is one part in particular that I remember. I can't tell you the names of, I know Keith, the drummer, because he's Ken's son, and I know Ken. But the lead guitarist, excellent lead guitarist, he has one of these guitars that you don't need to plug it in. It's synced up electronically. And so he would walk out from the stage, and he was walking on the lawn of the amphitheater. And there was this little kid, maybe 3, outside pushing 4 years old. And he sees the guitarist walking up, and he's playing, and the guitarist sees him. They make this eye contact. So the guitarist starts meandering toward him while he's playing his guitar solo. I mean, this guitar solo was right out of Eddie Van Halen. And he's playing, and the kid's looking, kids, wow, how are you doing that? So at the end of the solo, the guitarist takes his guitar pick, and he hands it to the kid. And the kid looks at the guitar pick, and he doesn't know exactly what to do. So what does he do? Like any little kid, he put it in his mouth. Welcome back. There are a lot of people that, for whatever reason, they can't pick up the phone and actually call to get onto the program. And I'm noticing it more and more, and Tim has also alluded to this. We've got the app chat. All you have to do is download the WBSM app, and thanks to SouthCoast Towing, you can do it for absolutely free. And then just go to where you can. I think it just says app chat. I don't use it to text anybody here, but when I'm here, I can actually go into my email and see if somebody has sent me some type of message. Case in point, Sully in Acushnet. We have been talking quite a bit today, in fact, about the Olympics and Olympic sports. And Sully says the next Olympic sport will be pickleball. Now, I don't know if he's making that up or if it's true, but, the more I hear about pickleball, the more I can begin to believe it. And it's kind of odd when you think about it, because tennis is already a part of the Olympics, and so is table tennis. Is there really room for pickleball? Maybe. Maybe not. But I got to tell you, if they put pickleball into the Olympics, I don't think I'm going to watch.